everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Dittmer Knittery podcast. My name is Bev, and you will find information about me and Dittmer Knittery, how to contact me, in the description box below. If I mention anything that needs a link or other information, you'll find that in the description box below as well. Today, I'm going to talk about needle felting. I first want to take a minute to talk a little bit about terminology, because terminology is not always consistent. But I use the terms that make sense to me: yarn, batting, roving, spun fibers, unspun fibers, natural. Those things make sense to me and have certain meanings in my mind, and I hope that we understand each other, and I hope you understand I do the best I can to help you understand what I'm trying to say, and I always welcome questions. But I understand if the terms you use and the terms you hear may be different from the terms I use. Just wanted to say that because sometimes terminology isn't consistent, and I don't want anybody to be frustrated by that. Let me know if you have questions, of course. And I want to say, too, that there is so much information on YouTube and other social media and educational platforms about needle felting and other kinds of felting. Please do some research. Find out things other than what I'm able to tell you, because I brushed the surface of this subject. I learned some things. I taught myself some things. And now I make things. And I get questions, and I love it, and I'm glad to answer them. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for asking me to talk about this subject that, of course, I really do enjoy talking about. I do encourage you to please do your research. Watch some videos. Have fun. Follow where the fibers lead you. I have an artist friend who says something that makes a lot of sense. He says something like, making art is play for adults. And I say, if you're not having fun, try doing something else. You don't have to do it the way I do it. You don't have to do it the way somebody else does it. Have fun. That, I think, is the point of making art. And yeah, just do it. That's my advice. I said I would show needle felting. This will not be a tutorial, but I'm glad to share my knowledge and my techniques. First, of course, I'll talk about how I got started. Have a little story. It's not a very long one. I tried some 3D needle felting where you make little animals and figures, and I wasn't very good at that. Of course, I didn't try very hard because I didn't enjoy it, and I just put it aside. But I had this needle felting tool and some felting needles because I had tried this 3D needle felting. But I just left that tool laying in my drawer, my supplies drawer, for years and years, many years, before I did any successful needle felting on a bag, let alone on a hat. And then in about 2014, I did this. A bag I called a tasket because I thought it looked like a green and yellow basket. The needle felting is not elaborate, but successful. I don't remember what had me get my felting needle and try this. I do remember the yarns wanting to be together, and I was surprised at the color choices. As I mentioned, I'm going to be needle felting on the surface of this knitted felted bag. I'm going to needle felt on this one side. This other side has a flap, and I'll probably add a tassel or a button there, but for right now, I'm going to be working on this side where I'm going to apply some needle felting and create some trees.
When I started needle felting in, say, 2014, I used what I had at hand. I had yarn and I had some felting needles. I continue to use mostly yarn in my needle felting. When I first started, I didn't use any roving or batting at all. I didn't have anything like that. And that's what was most commonly used, was roving or batting. I used what I had. I had yarn. I have some fibers here to show you that might help explain some of the differences in the fibers as I understand them. First, of course, you have to have a surface to felt on. This is a knitted bag, a knitted hot water felted bag that's ready for embellishment, that's ready for hot water felting. I have some yarns. These are Palette Knit Picks yarn. Palette Knit Picks yarns in a variety of colors that I just chose off my shelf by taking the bag over there near to the yarn and deciding what colors I'd like to start with. I don't know if I'll use all of these or if I may add different colors, but this is where I would like to start, is with the yarn and the bag. Yes, this is where I start. There are fun pokey needles too, and I'll get to them very soon. Here are some felting fibers that are available for purchase. These are just some things I have. Most of these kind of fibers were given to me. I didn't purchase a whole lot of this. Someone very kindly gave me their collection when they decided to take up a different craft or stop felting. Anyway, I wasn't one to say no to a bunch of wool fibers, so I ended up with these beautiful fibers. I have quite a lot of this, and these are just a few examples of what I want to show you about what I understand, how these fibers work for me in my work. So when I use terms like roving or batting, I'm using those terms as best I understand them. And you may use the terms differently or hear the terms differently, but like I said, I do the best I can to follow correct terminology, but you hear a lot of different things, and so I just try to make clear what I'm trying to explain about these fibers that I have. Like I said, these are the kinds of things that you will find available for felting. And one of the things that I learned just through experience, and although I've watched videos and I've had it explained to me about staple length, I didn't really understand about staple length and what a difference it made in felting until I got a little bit of experience. And so I want to share with you the little bit that I've learned. So staple length is the length of fiber that a certain sheep produces, which I think depends on the breed of sheep and the processing of the fiber. I'm not sure, but I know that staple length does depend on the breed, and I think that sometimes fibers are meshed together to create a short fiber from different kinds of fibers. So I'm not always sure what produces long and short staple length. I believe it depends on breed. But again, I'm not an expert at this. I just wanted to show you some different uses and the way I approach the use of these fibers. So these are what I would call bats, these three. These two, this one and this one, appear to be quite processed and easy to separate the fibers, so you can get the tiniest bit of fiber to use, or you can start with a nice big clump of fiber. But the fact that you can get tiny pieces of it, of course, helps with detail work. The same with this one. This has a different texture. This is quite coarse. This is softer, but it also separates quite easily into fibers, into small fibers that can be used for detail work. This piece, although it also appears to me to be batting, similar to these first two that I showed you, it looks to me like all the fibers are running the same way, where in these two pieces the fibers are pretty mashed up, just all mashed up. They don't appear to be going in one direction or another. These fibers appear to be going all in the same direction to me, all going this way. It still has a relatively short staple length, but you'll notice that I am not able to tear off a tiny piece from the end. This has a bit longer of a staple length, and I have to move my hands apart until I get a longer piece of fiber in order to be able to separate that. Let me show you that again. That when I hold my fingers close together and try to rip this apart, it doesn't give. I'm tugging on it quite hard. On these pieces, it just came right off. Tiny piece, like that. This one, I have to move my hands farther apart to get those fibers to begin to separate and to get a staple, a longer staple than what I'm getting from the first two fibers that I showed you. This last piece is this long, beautiful piece of wool that has quite a long staple. You'll see as I tug on it, it doesn't give it at all until I get my fingers quite a long ways apart, and it has a long staple. I don't know where the word staple comes from, but if somebody tells you that that wool has a long staple length, that's what that means, is that that's the length of wool that came off that piece of animal, and you cannot break it. You can cut it, but you cannot break it until you get to the end of the staple, to the length of the staple. So, having said all that, my point is these fibers that are easily separated to make tiny pieces are what I like most to work with because I do detail work. If I need a larger chunk, I can make a larger chunk of this and use it. I think when I get more experience, I will be able to use the fibers with the longer staple length. I think that's what it is that I just need practice to learn to use this kind of fiber better. And I will, of course. I will get some practice. And then, I wanted to show you also that all of these fibers, probably even the long staple lengths, but especially these short staple lengths, are blendable. So just take some of each of it and pull those staples apart and blend and reblend. And because, like I said, these are short staples and what I call batting, you can do that. You can tear it up and mix it up and make a blended color. And you can continue to do that until you have it even more blended. You can add a little bit of green to your rust, or a lot of green to the rust, and create your own nice color blend to use in your needle felting. So I like the short fibers. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that I am most able to work with the short fibers. That's why I like them, because that seems easier to me, more manageable to me. Another way to buy felt that you can use is in a sheet, in a flat sheet like this. And I had this just brown square of 100% wool felt, and I needle felted this lettering on it. This is my handwriting, so I freehand needle felted this lettering on it. And of course, this felted piece is not like your polyester felt squares that you get for 10 for $1 or 35 cents in the craft store. This piece costs probably over $10. retail. So that's how you could tell if someone is asking a higher price for a felted square, it's because it's real felt, because it's not polyester. And of course, all of these products have their place and their use in our craft and art world, but I just wanted to explain the difference between this felt square and a felt square that you would buy that's not actually made from wool, but would still is still often marketed as felt. This piece, of course, you can do surface needle felting, and a piece such as this, you could easily, before you put decoration on it or after you embellish it, you can cut it up because it's already felted. It's not going to fray. So you could use these pieces to make something felted and come at it, it's a different approach to start with an already felted piece. But I'm fortunate enough to have some of these pieces that someone gave me, so I've been experimenting with them. And I wanted to share with you that that's another kind of product you can buy. And again, I want to make clear that I am showing you such a limited range of things that are available. These are just the few things that are available on the market for you to buy, and just a few brushing the surface of different techniques of felting is what all I would ever be able to show you. Okay, now for the needles, which I was so glad when I found these needles. This product, livingfelt.com, is where I purchased these needles, and I will of course provide a link. And they provide a variety of needles and explain what they're for. Because you can buy a lot of felting needles of all different kinds, and they all do not perform the same. Some of them are for heavier use and some of them are for more delicate use. My favorites are the ones for the more delicate use, and this little card that comes with every needle explains the use of each needle. Let's take a closer look at these felting needles. The felting needles I'm showing here came from livingfelt.com. Of course, I'll provide a link. And the thing I like about these felting needles is that they come color-coded with a little bit of advice about what each one does best. And I have them, I bought a variety pack, so I have one of almost every one. And you can see there's a blue one, and it says it's a triangle needle and it's very coarse. And they ran then all the way to the yellow that says it's for finishing, sculpting, fine details. I have found that most of my work falls in this range, the purple, green, and yellow, the finer ones. These are a little bit coarser, but I do find use for them. This one is a reverse needle. It will pull the fibers back out. And let's get a little bit of a closer look and see if you can see some of the detail on these needles. The purple one and the yellow one, like I said, two of my favorites. I have used rubber bands to attach 3 needles together so that I have a multi-needle tool, which is very helpful. And that is in the purple spiral and the yellow triangle. And of course you can do that with any of these needles. And it took me a while to figure out which ones I liked best. Like, I didn't buy the pack of needles and immediately know that these would be my favorites and that they would be the ones that I didn't know that the purple, green, and yellow would be my favorites and that they would be the ones I would use the most. I didn't know that when I purchased them. I found out through experience. And what I would do is, if one didn't work, I would try another one. If I didn't like the way the green one performed, I would try the yellow one or the purple one. I know that the white one pulls out fibers. I've hardly ever used that. but it does work. You can pull out fibers with that. These 3 plain ones are different shapes. One is a triangle, one is a star, and one is a spiral. You have to look pretty closely to see those differences, but if you get a good look, you can see that each of them are different. And they are very fine and very, very sharp. If you stab yourself, it'll take you a second to know it because it's so very sharp you don't feel it at first. So these are the needles I use. Like I said, there are many, many sources of information and tools and materials, but I wanted you to see what I'm using and explain a little bit about how I discovered which tools worked best for me. And like I said, that was trying different ones. And I would, even if I were using these tools that are for more heavy use, for more coarse sculpturing, I would try the different ones. If one wasn't doing what I wanted it to, if it wouldn't puncture the wool and push it in, or if it pushed through the wool too easily and it wasn't attaching the wool to itself, then I would try a different one. So just try. Finer details, more coarse for reverse. So I hope that helps a little bit to see some of these needles. I know it helped me to realize that there were a variety of needles. I have purchased some things online that were just called felting needles, and they were all the same size and shape, and they were quite coarse. So after a little bit of time and watching a lot of videos, I came upon Living Felt, which has been very helpful, and I purchased these needles, and I've been using this kind of needle ever since I found them. I also kept the big coarser ones that I purchased, and every once in a while I do have a call to get one of those out and use it. If you need something coarser, if you want your needle felting to appear as though it has a hole in it, you may want to use something more coarse to create the things you're creating. I'm going to needle felt some trees on this bag. I often depict trees on my bags, and even though I repeat that theme and refer to previous work for ideas, no 2 trees are ever alike.
Let me show you the pieces I'm using for inspiration. This is a bag I created last year. I was inspired by a piece of art I own by a local artist, Lee Laney. He's the one who says that about making art is play for adults. And he's always encouraging to other artists. I know he's been very encouraging to me. With his permission, I used a piece of his art to inspire me to create my piece of art. And I'm going to show you his piece of art. I love the color and simplicity of this piece. Trees, green. And it did truly inspire me. The name of this piece is Moon and Trees Q style. Now, I have an idea about what Q style means. Let me know what you think. If you have an idea about what Q style might mean and why he called this Moon and Trees Q style. And if and when my bag that I created, if this piece does sell, I of course will offer compensation to the other artist who inspired me. I decided to use Lee's painting for inspiration because, well, it really did inspire me, and I needed to create a piece for a show. In previous years, this annual show has called for collaboration with another artist. And although the show in 2020 opened its parameters to include art by individuals, I submitted my piece, which I called Lee's Trees. I submitted Lee's Trees as a collaboration piece. It was accepted. 2 other pieces I submitted were not accepted. Lee's Trees, my purse bag piece, didn't get any awards. No one purchased it, but it was on view in a gallery in 2020, and that was a rare thing in 2020. I took some pictures during the process of needle felting this bag and made a slideshow, and I'm going to show you the process, the progress on some of the needle felting on this bag.
I get started by doing some preliminary work to determine placement, size, and how to make use of the space. Basically, line drawings with yarn. I use a fine felting needle to tack yarns in place. So these yarns are just tacked down to begin with, and I can change or remove my sketches. Notice I keep placing the moon to see how tall to make the trees, but I won't tack down the moon until I'm sure of where I want it. At this point, I wasn't completely happy with the piece. Didn't like the way the green of the trees looked, the way the yarn looked in the green of the trees. But I liked the rest of what I'd done, so I continued. I liked the shape and the size of the trees and how the work used up the space on the bag. After I tacked the moon in place, I added some stars to balance the space above the trees. And then here's my art with Lee Laney's piece.
Thanks so much for watching. Of course, contact me by leaving a comment or sending an email if you have questions for any reason or no reason at all. Please get in touch. And remember, if you want to know what's going to happen when you do it, when you do the art or the craft, if you want to know what's going to happen when you do it, do it. And that's where I find myself. When I say that to you, I find myself doing it. I'm happy to make these videos for you, and I truly hope you enjoy them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.